Yomi, tractate, Shevuot. Shevuos, page 43a, top of the page, Daf Mem Gimel and Aleph. And it's in the middle of an idea, so let us go back to 42b and start the idea. The last line of 42b states, Shomer Chinam o Eino Nishba Mina Hanimile de Tanu Rabbanan. The Mishnah teaches that an unpaid bailee, means someone who watches something for free, basically, who lost one of the excluded items does not take it an oath. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? The Gemara answers that it is as the sages taught in a Braita. And now we're on the top of 43a, Mem Gimel and Aleph, the words Ki Yitain Ish El Re'ehu. Ki Yitain Ish El Re'ehu Klal Kesef Oy Kelim Prat Lishmor Chazav Chalal Klal Uprat Uklal I Atadan Ela Kein HaPrat Ma Prat Mefarash Davar Metal V'Guf HaMamoin Af Kol Davar Metal V'Guf HaMamoin. The verse introduces the halachot with regard to an unpaid bailee with the phrase, if a man delivers to his neighbor silver or vessels to safeguard. Exodus 22 verse 6. The phrase, if a man delivers to his neighbor is a generalization. Silver or vessels, okay, first it says it just gives something to his neighbor, but then it goes very specific. Silver or vessels is a detail. And then the verse goes on to generalize again. It says to safeguard, just to safeguard, it is generalized again. Consequently, this verse contains a generalization, and then a detail, and then a generalization, in which case you may deduce that the verse is referring only to items similar to the detail. Applying this principle here, one concludes that just as each of the items mentioned in the detail is clearly defined as an item that is movable property and has intrinsic monetary value, so too an unpaid bailee takes an oath concerning anything that is movable property and has intrinsic monetary value. Didn't we say that he does not swear? He doesn't swear. Oh, only if he's paid. Maybe that's what it is. Kesef is he's paid to do it. Maybe he only swears if he. I didn't see how they were deriving that he doesn't swear. I see the general, specific in general, but I don't see how it connects to. Anyway, Yatsu Kalko is Shimetalton Yatsu Madim Shukshalko is Yatsu Shtava Shafabin Shimetalton in Guvamamin. Land is therefore excluded, as it is not movable property. Canaanite slaves are excluded as they are compared to land. In many areas of halakha, financial documents are excluded since, although they are movable property, they do not have intrinsic monetary value. Consecrated property is excluded because it is written in the verse, if a man delivers to his neighbor, this term indicates that both the one depositing the item and the bailee must be people and not the temple treasury. Noi se sachain b'shalim minalan detanu abanan ki teni shel re'ehu klal chamor osho ose prat kol behem lishma chazar v'chala klal u'prat u'klal kule The Mishnah teaches that a paid bailee does not pay for the loss or theft of one of these items. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive this halakha? The Gemara answers, it is as the sages taught in a Braita. The verse introduces the halachot with regard to a paid bailee with the phrase, if a man delivers to his neighbor a donkey, or an ox, or a sheep, or any animal to guard, Exodus 22 verse 9, The phrase, if a man delivers to his neighbor, is a generalization. The phrase, a donkey or an ox or a sheep, is a detail. And when the verse states, or any animal to safeguard, it then generalized again. Consequently, this verse contains a generalization and a detail in the generalization, which excludes any item that is not similar to the detail as delineated in the previous braita with regard to an unpaid bailee, up to and including the last clause of that braita. Consecrated property is excluded because it is written in the verse, if a man delivers to his neighbor. Rabbi Meir Omer, yesh devarim shehem kekarka ve'enan kekarka goyim. Michlal Rabbi Meir Sofer, kol hamechubar lekarka eino kekarka. Demi bepalgi beteunois, nepalgi besirukois. The Mishnah teaches, Rabbi Meir says, there are certain items that are like land with regard to their form, but are not treated like land from a halachic perspective. And the rabbis do not conclude that this is so, as they hold that the halachic status of anything that is attached to the land is like the land itself. The Gemara challenges by inference, does Rabbi Meir hold that the halachic status of anything that is attached to the land is not like land? If so, rather than disagreeing with regard to grapevines laden with fruit, let them disagree with regard to fruitless vines, as Rabbi Meir holds that the halachic status of the vines themselves is not like that of the land. Ela Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, Hachabano V'imam Veslibotzeh Komifligi. The Rabbi Meir Sofer Kivutzrois Demiyai Damion, Rabbanan Savri Loi Kivutzrois Damion. Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Chanina, said that they disagree here not with regard to any item that is attached to the land, as Rabbi Meir concedes that such items usually have the halachic status of the land itself. The dispute is specifically with regard to grapes that are ready to be harvested, as Rabbi Meir holds that their halachic status is similar to that of grapes that are already harvested. And the rabbis hold that their halachic status is not similar to that of grapes. It's interesting, just coming to mind now, that Rabbi Meir holds, according to what we're saying here, that grapes that are ready to be harvested, as if they're already harvested. And I remembered another opinion of Rabbi Meir, and they seem to align with each other, which is Rabbi Meir holds, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, he holds Makne Davar Shelo Ba'olam. He holds that you could sell something that has not yet come onto the world. And so it seems to be in alignment with his line of reasoning that he says that even if it didn't happen yet, but the potential is to happen, it's like it happened already. And that just made me think about that. But at any rate, harvested, the rabbis hold their halachic status is not similar to the grapes. They're already harvested and that they still have a status of land. Ein nishbain ela ad levar shebamida shebeshemishkal kule. Amar Abaye, lo shanu ela damale be'bais stam. Aval amale bais mole yedia ta'anati. The Mishnah teaches that one takes an oath only concerning an item that is defined by size, by weight, or by number. How so? If the claimant says, I delivered to you a house full of produce, and the other person says, I do not know how much you gave me, but what you left in my possession, you may take. And the amount in the house is less than that claimed by this claimant, the defendant is exempt from taking an oath. Abaye said, they taught this halakha only in a case where the claimant said to him, I gave you a house full of produce, without specification. But if he said to him, I gave you this specific house full of produce, his claim is known and defined. and the defendant is therefore required to take an oath concerning it. Amar le Rave, Iachi ad Tani Seva, Ze Omer ad Haziz, Ze Omer ad Hachalon, Chayav Liflog, Vilitni B'dideh, Hamed Devar Mamorim, B'bayis Molech, Awal Bayis Ze Molech Chayav. Rava said to him, if so, rather than teaching in the last clause of the Mishnah, if this party says that the house was full up to the ledge, and that party says that it was full up to the window, the defendant is liable to take an oath. Let the Tana distinguish and teach the distinction within the case itself, where the claim was for a house full of produce, and say, in what case is this statement that the defendant is exempt said? It is said in a case where the claim was for an unspecified house full of produce. But if the claim was for this particular house full of produce, the defendant is liable to take an oath. Since the Mishnah did not make this distinction, evidently the defendant is exempt even if the claim is referring to a specific house. יטענו בדבר שבמידה, שבמשקל ושבמניין. ויודה לא בדבר שבמידה ושבמשקל ושבמניין. Rather, Rava said, the defendant is never liable to take an oath unless the claimant claims from him an item that is defined by size, by weight, or by number, and the defendant admits to him with regard to a part of the claim that is an item that is defined by size or by weight or by number. Tanya Gavate Rave, Kol Tevua li biadcha v'ala omer, En lecha yadi patu menora gidola yesh li biadcha. אין לך בידי המנורך קטנו פוטר עזור גדול יש לי בידך אין לך בידי אלא עזור קטן פוטר. The Gemara comments, it is taught in Braita in accordance with the opinion of Rava. If the claimant says, I have a cord of produce in your possession, and the other one says, nothing of yours is in my possession, the defendant is exempt from taking an oath as he denies the entire debt. If he says, I have a large candelabrum in your possession. We're in Parshas Beloscha this week. It's a Parsha connection, menorah, the first part of Parshas Beloscha, first few verses. Okay. I have a large candelabrum in your possession. And the defendant responds, you only have a small candelabrum in my possession. He is exempt from taking an oath, as he admits not to part of the claim, but to possessing a different item. Similarly, if the claimant says, I have a large belt in your possession, and the defendant responds, you only have a small belt in my possession, he is exempt from taking an oath. כל תבוע יש לי בידך ועלה אומר, אין לך בידי אלא לתך חייב. מנורה בת 10 ליטרים יש בידך, אין לך בידי אלא בת 5 ליטרים חייב. The Braita continues, if the claimant said to him, I have a core of produce in your possession, the other one says, you only have a half a core in my possession, he's liable to take an oath. Similarly, the claimant says, I have a candelabrum weighing 10 litra in your possession, and the defendant responds, you have only a 5 litra candelabrum in my possession, he is liable to take an oath. Le'oilam eno chayav ad she'yit'anenu בדבר שבמידה ושבמשקל ושבמניין. יוידי לא בדבר שבמידה ושבמשקל ושבמניין. The Braita concludes, the principle of the matter is that the defendant is never liable to take an oath unless the claimant claims from him an item that is defined by size or by weight or by number. And the defendant, that seems like a pretty Shivamida, Mishkal, Minyan. They're all with mems. Davar Shivamida, Shivamishka. That's interesting. something tangible. Davar shebemida shebemishkan. Mishkan or Minden. Well, we'll get to Gematria later on, but you'll probably get it right now, actually, if you wanted to see it. It would be Davar Shebemida Shebvishem Mishal Shebinian is 1795. It's 247 in Mispar Zeder. That came up today. 76 is Thursday. Wow. Okay. Okay, right. Okay. Klaloi shel davar le'asoy mai, lav le'asoy bais zemaleh. The Gemara asks. What does the Braita add that was not already taught by mentioning the principle of the matter? Doesn't the Braita mention this principle to add that even if the claim for this specific house full of produce, the defendant is exempt, as this is not considered an item defined by size? Accordingly, the Braita is in accordance with the opinion of Rava. Ma shita'ano lo hoda lo, uma shehoda lo, lo ta'ano. Having cited the Braita, the Gemara now analyzes it. What is different about the case where the claimant claimed a large candelabrum and the defendant admitted to owing a small candelabrum that renders the defendant exempt from taking an oath? It is because that which he claimed from him he did not admit to at all, and that which he admitted to he had not claimed from him. If so, in the case where the claimant claimed a 10-liter candelabrum and the defendant admitted to owning a 5-liter candelabrum, the defendant should also be exempt, as that which he claimed from him, a heavier candelabrum, he did not admit to at all. And that which he admitted to, a lighter candelabrum, he had not claimed from him. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak said, here in the latter case we are dealing with a candelabrum composed of segments that detach. If the defendant is liable to take an oath because he admits to owing in part of the candelabrum claimed by the claimant. Ihachi. Very creative. I mean, when they this is my own comment here, but anytime the Gemara has a ha'achov ma'askinan, and what's it talking about, or masur mechsra, or it seems that, I mean, it's hard to imagine that they wouldn't say it. Like, it's something so specific they should say with a menorah that has parts. Why didn't they say it to begin with? It almost seems like it's like a de facto thing that they're making it work. Because it doesn't work, so they're trying to make a case where it works. That's what it seems to me. So it's only after the fact. That's not what they originally intended to. They're saying, in a case like this, that's where it applies. That's just my thought. And I have a feeling, now I'm not the only person that thinks that way, but anyway, just amusing. Ihachi. It's amusing, it's a musing. And, it's amusing. Ihachi. Azora nami nivelok mebedi alafi. Ela delaifi lokatani. Hachanami b'shel chulios lokatani. The Gemara asks, if so, what the right to teach the case in which the defendant is liable to take an oath involving a belt as well, and interpret the case as referring to a belt made of pieces that are connected to each other. The claimant claims a belt with a large number of pieces, and the defendant claims that he owes him a belt with fewer pieces. Rather, clearly the Braita is not teaching cases involving items made of pieces connected to each other. Here too, in the case of the candelabrum, the Braita is not teaching the case of a candelabrum composed of segments that detach. Ella Amar Rabbi Abar Mamol Shari Menoira Hoyraviachi Yakoligo Lahamida Alchameshit. Rather, Rabbi Abar Mamol said that the case of a candelabrum is different because one can scrape a 10 litra candelabrum and reduce it to 5 litra one. Therefore, he admitted to a part of the claim. And now we start a new Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Amal v'schaver ala mashkin v'ala mashkin amalo sela helveticha alav v'shekel haya shaveh v'hala omer lo ki not so ela sela helvetani alav sela haya shaveh petul. There is a case of one who lends money to another on the basis of collateral, and the collateral was lost while in the possession of the creditor, and the creditor says to the debtor, I lent you a selah on the basis of that collateral, and that collateral was worth a shekel, meaning half a selah, therefore you owe me a shekel. And the other individual, the debtor, says in response to the claim, that is not the case. Rather, you lent me a selah on the basis of that collateral, and the collateral was worth a selah. I owe you nothing. In this case, the debtor is exempt from payment. Okay. Sela hilviticha alav v'shekel haya shaveh v'hala omer lo ki ela sela hilvitani alav v'shlosha dinarim haya shaveh chaya. There is a case of a creditor who claims, I lent you a selah on the basis of that collateral, and it was worth a shekel. And the other individual, the debtor, says, that is not the case. Rather, you lent me a selah on the basis of that collateral, and the collateral was worth 3 dinars of a selah. In this case, the debtor is liable to take an oath due to the fact that he responded to the claim of the creditor with partial admission. Okay. Selah helvetani alav v'shtayim haya shaveh v'hala omer lo ki ela selah helveticha alav v'selah haya shaveh batum selah helvetani alav v'shtayim haya shaveh ela omer lo ki ela selah helveticha alav chamisha dinarim haya shaveh. If in that case the debtor said, you lent me a selah on the basis of that collateral, and the collateral is worth 2 selah, so now you owe me a selah. The other party, the creditor, said, that is not the case. Rather, I lent you a selah on the basis of that collateral, and the collateral was worth a selah. Here the creditor is exempt. If in that case the debtor said, you lent me a selah on the basis of that collateral, and the collateral was worth 2 selah. The other party, the creditor, said that is not the case. Rather, I lent you a selah on the basis of that collateral, and the collateral was worth 5 dinars. Here, the creditor is liable to take an oath due to the fact that he responded to the claim of the debtor with a partial admission. Umi nishba mi shehapikadon etzlo shema yeshav hazeh v'yotzei ha'az v'yikol. Who takes the oath? The one in whose possession the deposit has been located, meaning the creditor, who took collateral from the debtor. The sages institute this provision lest this party, meaning the debtor, take an oath, and the other party, the creditor, produce the deposit and prove the oath false. Okay. And now, excuse me. Second. Close the door. The door, nagid kalecha. And we turn to 43b. Am Gimel Amud Bet. Amud Beis. With the Gemara. Top of the page, Zog to Heli Gemara. The Gemara Zog, Ahaya. Ilem Sepa. V'tipukle the Shevuos gabe malvi. Aya means to which case is the final statement in the Mishnah, which says the creditor is the one who takes the oath referring. If we say it's referring to the case in the latter clause of the Mishnah, where the debtor claims that the collateral was worth more than the loan, derive this halakha from the fact that the oath is anyway taken by the creditor, as he is the defendant in the case. In this case, the additional statement is superfluous. Amar Shmuel Areisha V'chein amar Chia bar Rav Areisha. V'chein amar Yochanan Areisha. In response, Shevuos says the statement relates to the case in the first clause of the Mishnah, where the debtor is the defendant. And Rabbi Chia bar Rav similarly says that it relates to the first clause. And Rabbi Yochanan similarly says that it relates to the first clause. Ma'areisha Sefer Dereisha. Sela hilviti chalav v'shekel haya shaveh. V'hada omer lo ki ela sela hilvitani elav u'shlosha dinarim haya shaveh chayav. Yeshvuos gabi lo'i vehi v'shakluha rabanan milove v'shadiuha amalve. The Gemara asks, what did the Amoraim mean by the first clause? The Gemara answers, they were not referring to the very first halacha in the Mishnah, but rather to the latter part of the first clause. There is a case of a creditor who claims, I lent you a sela on the basis of that collateral, and it was worth a shekel. And the other individual, the debtor, says, that is not the case. Rather, you lent me a sela on the basis of that collateral, and the collateral was worth 3 dinars, meaning 3/4 of a sela. In this case, he is liable to take an oath. As in this case, the oath should in principle be taken by the debtor, since he is the one who admitted to a part of the creditor's claim, where the sages removed the obligation to take an oath from the debtor and imposed it on the creditor, deeming him liable to take an oath that the collateral was not worth more than a shekel. V'hashta, Temar Ravashi Dekamelon, Ze nishba she'en l'reshus v'ze nishba kamel shaveh. Hachika mar mi nishba zechila, mi she'b'gadon etzlo, shema yishava ze, yotzi ala ez b'gadon. The Gemara notes, and now that Ravashi says that we maintain that 2 oaths are taken in this case, as this party, the creditor, takes an oath that the collateral is not in his possession, and that party, the debtor, takes an oath concerning how much the collateral is worth. This is what the Mishnah is saying. Who takes an oath first? The one in whose possession the deposit has been located, meaning the creditor, first takes an oath that the collateral is not in his possession, lest this party, the debtor, take an oath, and then the other party, the creditor, produce the deposit and prove the oath false. Amar Shmuel, Hayman de Osefe, Alfa Zuze lechavere, Umashkan le Kata de Megala, Avad Kata de Megala, Avad Alfa Zuze, Avalta de Kata de La. Shmuel says, with regard to one who lent 1,000 dinars to another, and took from him the handle of a sickle as collateral, if the handle of the sickle is lost, the creditor has lost the entire sum of 1,000 dinars, even though the lost collateral was worth less, probably much less. But if he took 2 handles as collateral and only lost one of them, the creditor does not lose the entire debt, he loses only the value of the handle that he lost. Rav Nachman Amar, Afilu ta'oti katati, avad chada, avad 500, avad idach, avad kule, avad kata unisachala, ne'alda yamri, afilu kata unisacha, avad nisacha, avad palga, avad kata, avad kule. And Rav Nachman says, even if he took 2 handles and only lost one of them, he has lost 500 dinars. Today's Thursday, 500. I lost 500 dinars, meaning half the debt. If the other one was then also lost, he has lost the entire debt. But if he took a handle and a piece of silver as collateral, and then he lost the handle, he has not lost half the debt, as he presumably relied on the silver, not the handle, for payment. The sages of Nardal say, even if he took a handle and a piece of silver, and the piece of silver was lost, he has lost half the debt. If the handle was then lost, he has lost the entire debt. The Gemara challenges Shmuel's opinion based on the Mishnah. We learned in the Mishnah there is a case of a creditor who claims, I lent you a selah on the basis of that collateral, and it was worth a shekel. And the other individual, the debtor, says, that is not the case. Rather, you lent me the selah on the basis of that collateral, and the collateral is worth 3 dinars, meaning 3/4 of the selah. In this case, the debtor is liable to take an oath, according to Shmuel's opinion, that if the collateral was lost, the debt is cancelled. Let the debtor say to him, you have already received repayment of the debt by means of the collateral. Masnisim bidi parish, Shmuel bidila parish. The Gemara answers the halacha in the Mishnah with regard to a case where the creditor stated explicitly that he is taking the collateral only to assure payment of the value of the item and not as full repayment. Therefore, since there is a dispute with regard to the collateral's monetary value, the two parties must litigate this matter. Shmuel, by contrast, was referring to a case where the creditor did not state explicitly whether he was taking the collateral to cover only its monetary value or the entire debt. In that case, it is presumed that he took it to cover the entire debt. Lema ketanai amal veschaveiro alamashkeni shava v'yito es moisa divrei Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Akiva Omer yachanu she'amar lo klum el vitani el alamashken aval alamashken avdu moisecho. The Gemara suggests, let us say, that Shmuel's ruling is the subject of a dispute between Tanaim, and it is stated in Brayta with regard to one who lends money to another on the basis of collateral, and the collateral was lost, he must take an oath that it was in fact lost, and may then take his money. This is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva says that the debtor can say to the creditor, didn't you lend me the money only on the basis of the collateral? Since the collateral was lost, your money is lost as well. But with regard to one who lends another person 1,000 dinars with a promissory note, and in addition to the note, the debtor left collateral in the creditor's possession, all agree that since the collateral was lost, his money is lost as well, since he had a promissory note as proof of the loan. The collateral was clearly taken as potential repayment. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances under which Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva disagree? If is in a case where the collateral was worth the amount of money that was lent to him,